What's up, PT fam? Okay, so we're directly on the channel. So just like last time, what I'll do is I'll save it and I'll repost it so that if you wanted to share it outside of the group, that'll be available to you. Give me a second while I get onto a location. And if you're jumping on right now, I'm just starting. Nothing crazy's gone over yet. I'm just going to get myself to a little local park here where I can hear myself, have good reception, and feel outdoorsy. Nico, what's up? I saw you join. Now, Facebook Live is still trying to work out some of the kinks. Garrett, what up? Guys, if you're joining, please drop me a couple emojis, some, whatever, some thumbs up, some hearts. Type out some, type out some comments. That way, that way I can know that I can actually engage with you guys. Ben, Bryant, Katie, what's up, guys? Taylor, looks like it works. Thank you. Autumn, what's up? Just for fun, in case you guys aren't familiar with Southern California, check this out. So, outside that direction, right? Blue skies, no problems. Marine layer, all clouds. Go figure. All right, let's go into business here. All right, I got Taylor's comment. Can somebody else also just kind of type a couple things out in terms of comments? That way I can make sure that I can engage with you guys and it's a working feed, and I'm not getting all sorts of questions and comments that I'm not able to attend to, because that would be sad. Getting a couple emojis. I'll test it myself. Test. Jeff, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just going to assume that it's working. And guys, if you don't see me responding, Drew, what's up? If you don't see me responding, it's probably Facebook lag, or it might be Facebook just decided to hate you and I. And so, Ellie, what's going on? And let's just, back each other up, guys. Like, if I'm not answering something, I'm not trying to ignore you. Probably I just didn't see it, or it's like 50 comments down. I will get back to it. But we got to talk about this. I want to say this has been like a pent-up broadcast, 2-3 weeks in the runnings. And it's so important because it breaks my heart, and also gets me just completely aggravated whenever I hear about anybody, CI, professor, another PT practice owner, anybody going, oh, you know what, just PT isn't worth it anymore. It's not worth it being a physio anymore these days. There's this, there's that, every possible excuse is there, right? Here's the thing. Those excuses are transplantable to every other industry, every other profession, within and without the healthcare profession at large, the healthcare industry at large, right? The reimbursement is changing. It's changing for everybody, right? Reimbursement rates are going down. It's going down for everybody. Healthcare consumers are changing, and they're different, and their mindset's a little different. They're actually shopping things out, so I can't refer on just my only 10 physician offices and surgeon practices to give me my patients anymore. Guess what? No one else can too. Everything always changes. And yeah, guess what? Academics, it costs a lot of money these days. It costs a lot more money these days comparatively to go to school than it used to. And guess what? That sucks. It really does. It's not, I hate using the word, it's not fair, or it's not equitable, or whatever, but it is the situation, okay? And it's like, like a lot of financially hard things happened in the last, say, 150 years of human history. But we actually got to have those things happen to us. Like, we actually were able to experience recession versus starvation. So we have to get our heads out of this thing and back into the real world and realize a couple of facts. Regardless of if you went to state, in-state school and you have basically no debt because you were able to stay at home and you're able to take on like a part-time personal trainer job or whatever, right? Or you did a lot of work study, or you have, say, $200,000 because you went to one of the top-ranking schools that, have a lot of clout and basically charge you as much as, any other medical school would. It's okay. Let's just put it that way. First, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, number one. Whatever debt you've taken on, that's something you've already taken on. And if you, have yet to take on that debt, kind of think about it a little bit. And you can talk to really helpful people that, are out there in our field and within our community. A couple quick shout outs, like Joe from FitBucks, Will Butler. those two guys, I would trust them with my financial lives. They know it infinitely better than I do, because finances, in business are slightly different, and in fact, very different, but they have similar qualities. And that's really what got me into this, because I realized that when I took a promotion as a corporate director, I was a corporate director in my first 3 years. I managed 3 parallel programs. It was a inpatient SNF, it was a home health business, and it was also outpatient. And so, traditionally you would think, and I've been around a little while, so I've heard the same thing over and over again. It takes 5 years to do anything. It takes 5 years before you can open up your own practice. It takes 5 years before you can take your first promotion. It takes 5 years before you become like a clinical specialist, or blah, 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 blah. So I'm not exactly the smartest person in the world. I work hard. I have passion. I feel like if I have any strength at all, it's communications. And I'm fairly good with numbers. I'll smile there because I know I'm good with numbers. That said, I broke that mold. And I've helped a lot of other people break that mold. It doesn't take you 10 years to make 6 figures in our field as physios, as physical therapists. And when I found out that PTAs were making more than me in my new grad pay, like I flipping lost it. I lost my proverbial fecal matter, because I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, what are the litany of possible reasons that are any good for that to even occur in the job market, right? And when I finally sat on the other side of the management desk, I was like, there's no reason. The only reason that's occurring is because, A, we as prospective employees don't know anything about how we're paid and why, and therefore we don't feel like we have any type of land or ground or position or leverage to negotiate, which is 100% false. And the second thing is, we've perpetuated this lie as a professional culture that it takes time to get paid, or it takes time to get good, or it takes whatever. Time isn't valuable. Time is a vehicle for value, right? And just think about the CPT codes that we bill under, right? If we do nothing for 8 minutes, it's worth nothing. If we do ultrasound for 8 minutes, it's probably worth a little less. But if we do some high quality manual therapy or TheraX or neuromuscular reeducation, it's worth not just financially, but it's worth something to the patient, because they're actually getting benefit from it. So time isn't valuable, but it is a vehicle for value. That said, we need to stop making each other, and I'm saying this as just the royal we, okay? Like, it's all of us. We're all in this whole thing together. We need to stop making each other suffer what we've suffered, right? I didn't get paid well until I was 8 years in because I needed experience, so you don't deserve it. That's crap, okay? That is just the worst way of trying to elevate a profession, is by eating our young and clipping them down by the knees the moment they get out of school. Oh, you're not a real doctor. Or, that's cute that you think that, you've had some advanced training. Or I've even heard of people getting down on, like people that have gone through some of the highest ranking residencies out there, got their OCS and their SCS, they're in for their fellowship, and like, oh, that's cute. You have 2 years of experience. Wait until you have like 20. Wait until you've done, 50, or like, what was it, like 500,000 PAs on the spine. Then you're worth something, right? That's ridiculous. So, okay, I'm going on a tangent. Let me scroll down, because I saw a whole bunch of stuff show up. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. And let's talk about some specifics, okay? Right, Rich, like, why is it always 5 years? Like, Gina and I can't figure it out. Like, we always talk about this. Dr. Ryan Smith, right? He's at Recharge. He's one of our partners at Recharge. He's COO of this thing. It's physio and CrossFit mindfulness hybrid, and it's investor backed. He's less than a year out, and he's running this thing, and he's not doing it alone. You need good partners. You need to have the right connections. You have to have the right networking, and you have to have the right reasons and resources. But he's a perfect example. And he actually started his own cash business right out of school. Right? And he's not the only one that's done this. Tana, you're not making 6 figures yet. Exactly. Samuel, can you bring me to the next interview? We might have to negotiate something separate. And yes, we have to absolutely support each other. So let's talk about the actual numbers, guys. And you guys have any kind of questions, just listen below. I'm trying to catch up with everything. Obviously, this is a passionate topic for me. And I get a little cray-cray about it, so apologize if I'm a little bit off the cuff today. I'm also kind of just working through a little bit of a cold that's kind of finally leaving my body, so it's there. But guys, okay, let's just talk about just the basic reasons. For those of you that don't know, if you're in outpatient, the majority of us are or will eventually be, right? If you're in outpatient, you are making about $250,000, $250,000 of gross revenue goes straight to that business unit, clinic, department, whatever, okay? And the reason that works is because of something called RPP, or average revenue per patient encounter. The RPP, and different businesses call it different things, right? It's the same thing as how much money do you collect or how much money do you receive when you see a single patient for a single visit. It doesn't matter if it's 1 unit or 20. 20 would be amazing. Like I applaud both the patient and you for being able to stand that. Whatever the case is, right? Whatever your average revenue is per patient encounter, each treatment, or say each course of care, it doesn't matter. The math is generally the same, right? National average is somewhere hovering around $80. Whether that's, typically that's about 2 units worth. And so when you do the math, okay, jot down these two numbers real quick. 2080 and 32. Gosh, I'm losing it. I need my coffee and my dinner. I'm vacuumed in. Right, just did my vacuum for my house before I jumped on here. But I'm coffeed out. I need the coffee and I need the food. But it's I believe it's 3250. Okay, so 2080 3250. 2080 hours is your full-time 1.0 equivalent of every single hour that you typically work in a 40-hour job every single year. You need to multiply that by your hourly wage to find out what your 1.0 FTE is. You can also use that number to calculate different types of bonus structures, as well as, say, if you're working for home health, most of them are pay per visit. There's ways to do the math and equivalent that stuff. 3250 on average is the amount of treatments that you'll have if you're working in a clinic that does 2-unit treatments for, I'm assuming you're working 8-hour days, 40-hour weeks. Really, it's the 40-hour weeks that matter, and 50 weeks a year. And it should average out to about 3,200 and change. Now, if you're doing, if you're doing 3-4 unit treats, then you're about half that, right? But on average, you're somewhere between, high thousands to low 3,000s of treatment encounters every single year in outpatient. So when you multiply that RPP, or multiply that $80 or $85 or $90 or $75 or $65, God forbid $65, we got to talk. If you're a clinic owner, you're doing $65, we need to talk about that, because there's probably something going on that you're not completely aware of. If you're making that, right, for your clinic, and you multiply the math out, you're making $250,000 for that clinic. Right, now we have to talk about something called percent collections. Percent collections is an old medical term back in like the 70s when medical practices got together and they formed partnerships with junior partners and associate physicians. What they did was they paid a blank wage to an associate. They proved themselves, then they can buy into the company with stock and or with equity and or revenue and profit sharing terms as a junior partner, and finally then a senior partner or full partner or whatever. And what they would do is they give them a cut of that top revenue as part of their pay. And in the world of PT, if you're a smaller clinic, you're probably paying somewhere between 30 to 40% collections off your top revenue line. If you're a larger clinic, a huge entity, like a national footprint, then you're probably in like the mid-low 20s to like the mid-low 30s. It's a very, very wide swing, but that's on average what you're seeing out there. And so when you're getting, when you're getting this offer across the table, never say yes to never say yes the day of. Take at least 24 hours to consider it. If they respect you, they will give you that. They'll give you 2 days or even 3. If they really want you, they may hint, make a decision quicker. Wink. So with that said, right, if you have that discussion, you should always ask them, so what's your business structure like, and what's your management structure like? What are the promotional opportunities within? How am I as a clinician judged as a good or a bad clinician? And what does it look like every single year for merit raises? Is it based off performance? Is it based off the fact that I'm just, playing nice on the playground and meeting minimal HR standards? That's pretty common in terms of health systems and hospitals, especially nonprofit hospitals, right? You get raised just for existing and for being there, and not for pissing people off or calling people names. That's just how it is. It's that business structure. That's okay, right? And then you need to talk about the RPP or in general. And if they're not willing to or able to, that's a big red flag. Right? Because if they're not willing, like your livelihood depends on their business solvency. And if they're not willing to at least share a little bit, at least go, I can't tell you exact numbers because we have to sign an NDA first. I'm happy to do that with you first. But I can tell you on average, that's in the window of 60 for bad payers and 95 for good payers, somewhere there. But I can't quote you anything just because it goes against the company policy. That's a respectful and transparent answer, as transparent as that manager can be, right? But if they go, why are you asking that? That's not your business. Get the heck out, because they're going to treat you that way in the interview. Imagine how much worse it's going to be in the actual employment, right? So you've got to consider all these things and do the math, and then you can you can look into the PT Job Market Pulse or any one of the other resources out there and just compare. Are you at least somewhere in the average? And quite honestly, like, I've seen too many people get lowballed at 55K, even in areas that don't need to be lowballing that low, and actually have fairly high standards of living, of cost of living rather. And it's just killing us. It's killing us from the inside out. So let me I'm just getting dizzy. And yes, Rich, every single person's course on the professional trajectory differs than others, talent and opportunity, and luck, right? And just having networked and personality traits and desires, for crying out loud, right? Not everybody wants to be a startup entrepreneur because it's hard life, right? Some of us want to hang out for a little bit. I'm out of San Diego. I like hanging out. Isn't the pay relative to where you live? Yes and no, Blake. So we put together, if you just look up the PT Job Market Pulse Year 1, we break that down by state, by zip code, setting, and experience factors. Fun fact, experience doesn't matter as much as we think it did. It used to matter. Back with the baby boomers and the earlier, if I'm saying that right, like chronologically, the earlier generation Xers, staying loyal to a company was a great way of breaking six figures in about 7 to 8 years, equivalent to days now. It wasn't six figures back then. But it was equivalent. If you stayed to a company like 8 to 12 years for most of the slower promoting companies, they would make it worth your while. And basically there wasn't much reason to move around. We're in the millennial economy now. And so most of us will switch jobs every 2 to 5 years. Pretty normal. I had, I think, 5 jobs within like 3.5 years. And that included breaching the 6-figure pay rate and getting a promotion to director, skipping several layers of management. So it's pretty normal. And my story is pretty normal, even in that circle. I've actually seen people move around more than I have, with even better, just even better career paths in their own light. So in terms of regionality, yes, certain states, certain areas, the payers market mix pays better, and therefore clinics can pay better. Others pay worse, so it pays worse. There's also, of course, cost of living, absolutely. But you'll also notice that almost in every single state, minus certain regional areas like Denver and Pennsylvania and upstate New York, certain areas of Florida, they don't pay very well on either side of the table. It's just a little bit tough there, but it's your choice to live there. Other areas will pay very, very well. And even the places that say they don't pay well, you take a look at the pulse, you take a look at national data. I don't know where people are trying to jip you and saying, oh, no, we just start people here. If you just start people there, then it's your call to work there or not. It is a job market, just like a housing market, right? If it's Bumsville over there, move over to the beach city, man, and deny them your talent, deny them your creativity, deny them your innovation and your energy and the human capital that you present. Because if they're not going to treat you right, and it's not always about cash pay, right? It's probably like the most enjoyable job I had. I actually got paid the least, but they gave me a lot more in retirement funds and in health benefits, and I needed those at the time. So it is very dependent. Lacey, thank you, and let me expand that. Yes, that's the other thing I wanted to touch on too. Is you're absolutely right, Lacey, with you have to manage your personal finances. And again, I'm not a personal finance buff. You want to talk to the other guys I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, right? But you really want to make sure you're smart with your loans and smart with the way you spend money. We were living, on a first floor. I was driving my old Honda Civic, when I first got out into the field and, got married, all that, the usual thing, right? You're fresh, you're out there, one family car. And you have to make sure, like, you pinch every penny, and everybody has to go through that. It's kind of cool, actually. It's part of the life. But as you can't stay there forever, and you have to progress, and you have to progress quickly. Heather, great to hear that you're already planning how to get the loans paid back. And quite honestly, you want to start planning that stuff now. You want to start pipelining your job opportunities now. And for those of you in rotation, you need to start collecting your employment data now, right? All of your patient satisfaction scores, all your OSWESTRIs, your DASH, all those utilization ratios that these fancy EMRs can print out. You can sign something. You can have your DCE do something with your CCCE, right? And get like a mutual NDA, redact some files, but then you can keep stuff like your NPS score, which is absolutely huge in terms of personal and clinic branding. It tells you how likely they are to leave you a favorable review on online platforms, which I can't tell you the worth of that in terms of a monetary investment and a return on investment in terms of driving the growth and marketing of the business. Let's see. Anna Marie, what's going on? Hearing about people starting their own company, very ortho-based, but when your position is acute, subacute, how do you negotiate acute settings and, stolen jobs? Certain areas just are weird. Like pediatrics has been known to be one of the lower paying areas because it's popular, right? It's like a privilege to work. Same with acute neuro rehab. It's a privilege to be in that setting. And therefore, managers feel very, very comfortable lowballing you because basically their posture is, if you don't take it, somebody else, well, you're just lucky that we're even interviewing you. It sucks because it robs a lot of our customers, our consumers, our patients, their families from good, very talented clinicians in those settings because they just won't go there because it won't pay. But how do you negotiate up? Typically lateral transfers. Usually when you have a lateral transfer, you get somewhere between a 5 to 10% bump. Ironically enough, that's the same bump that you get when you get your first promotion. And how big of a bump can it be? Huge. Just recently, we'll just say colleague number one, okay? Colleague number one went through door number one, did a lateral transfers, outpatient, however, not inpatient. I'll tell you inpatient story in a second. And he was making $60K and got himself a 30% raise. Just PT to PT in another clinic across town, and lo and behold, lateral transfer, massive raise, right? And why is that the case? It's because the person across the table now can't treat you like you're nothing and isn't willing to. They feel wrong about it. It's just ironic they don't feel wrong about doing that to a new grad. And that's the thing, is that there's a lot of great places that want new grad talent. They just want talent, period. They're trying to find them. They're gobbling up talent at a loss. A lot of the larger clinics are doing this because they recognize that without that talent, they don't have the supply chains or the human resources to negotiate with their larger payer contracts in the next couple of years. They need them now. Let's see. Nicholas, yes, 85K in New York City, you bet. Negotiate tiers of bonus, absolutely, Jeff. Dan, outpatient practice, pediatrics, 34 per hour or less. It's not so much low patient load or even cancellations, because if you take a look at the data of the wow, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but that just got real cold real quick. I can't wear my San Diego shorts. I'm of course being a wuss, right? Because like in San Diego, if it's hotter than 80, it's too hot. If it's cooler than 70, it's too cold. So it's probably like 68, and I'm all complaining. It's not that. Really, it's a job market effect. And a lot of them also, they sign funky contracts. I don't know what it is. Pediatric practices, it's the majority of them. They just take on different terms of contracts for whatever reasons, and it doesn't really pan out. If you take a look at the PT job market Pulse Year 1 stuff, you'll notice that, yeah, they get paid low, like pediatric PT does get paid low, but the averages are actually very comparable to outpatient. And it's not as bad as we once thought. Like a lot of these myths, right? Like it takes 5 years to do anything, or pediatric pays terribly, or home health and stuff pay the most. And like in certain categories, yes. But the data that we're actually seeing and physically gathering on the front lines is demonstrating that, you know, it's the quintessential PT answer. It depends. And it depends primarily on you knowing your value and negotiating for it and holding true to it. You have to never, ever settle. Never settle. Kelsey, I'm in San Diego. Talk to me and we can chat that out. Happy to. Actually, anybody... I mean, you guys should know this by now if you're familiar with any of my broadcasts or my content. Reach out. I mean, I just blogged on it today. Like the coolest thing happened today where a DPT student who's giving a commencement speech in August DMs me on Facebook and asks, you know, hey, got a couple ideas of like things you wish you could really, you know, you need it to hit home for people that graduate. And we had this full-blown conversation that turned into a partial blog post, and we kind of saved the rest of it for her actual speech in August. And that would have never happened if she didn't reach out, and I would not have a blog post in it if she didn't reach out. And you know, it's not that I quote needed a blog post today. I just thought it was a really cool share, so I just whipped it up and put it out there because I want people to connect. I want people to reach out not just to me. There's more experts than just me out here. Jeff, 108 in Fresno, absolutely fun. That's why I don't live there. But yeah, there is negotiation, James, for traveling positions. Yes, absolutely. There are travel's a little different. Travel typically is you get an hourly pay, which sounds crazy. Like they'll tell you like, oh yeah, we pay you $19 an hour. You're like, what? You know, goodbye, sir. But what they also do is they give you a stipend. So half the pay is in the stipend, half the pay is in the hourly. The hourly is kind of differential charge, that the way that traveling company makes money when you bill your hours to that sniffer, to that home health company, or to that hospital, or to the outpatient clinic. The stipend is how you get paid to make sure you can feed yourself and drive to where you need to be and get that, studio for those 12 or 13 weeks. There's always room to negotiate. And it's not about the travel company, it's about the recruiter. I'm not the travel expert out there, but there's a couple of people. Shout out to April Fajardo. She's one of the, she's been doing this for right out of school essentially, and she can tell you plenty about that. Now, let's see. Drew, $1 for every time. It depends. Yeah, for reals, right? That penny. It depends. Just give an answer. No patient will ever take that. Oh, it depends. Like, no, give them something. Right? You have to qualify it, but give them something to latch onto. Right? My favorite are healing times. Like, you just let them know. Guess what? In the first 2 to 3 weeks in your course of care, whether you're in the hospital or in the clinic or at home health, your body is still trying to figure out what's going on. And typically the responses you see are neurophysiological or neuromuscular. Your body is learning to be more efficient in its recovery process. But it does take about 6 to 8 weeks for your body to actually experience muscle hypertrophy, that your muscles are actually physically getting stronger. If I were to mechanically measure it, you're getting stronger there. You have a window, and you also have some firm dates. And then they all of a sudden go, man, this clinician knows their stuff. They give me window of times. Nobody else gives me window of times. Even my surgeon is like, it could take 9 to 12 months for your bone to completely heal. It's like, really? You just saw it and did something to it. Give me something. So, guys, don't settle ever, all right? Like, I've seen too many of my colleagues, too many of my friends go both ways. Either, and I promised an inpatient story. I'll tell you that in a second. Either they got lowballed so poorly and they signed some atrocious, if not criminal, loyalty contract where, if you leave us in the first 5 years or the first 3 years, now you owe us money. And worse than that, you can't work anywhere within the Tri-City areas or any town that rhymes with, whatever, or has a vowel in it. Like, I've seen those. That's crazy talk. And people sign them. Please don't. If you're one of them, don't. If you have a friend that's looking at one of them, tie their hands together with Chinese finger traps. I don't care. Don't let them sign that stuff. Right? And there are ways to get out of it. Some of those contracts are completely baloney, and you'll have to talk to a lawyer, because in certain states, certain non-compete clauses are unenforceable. Yeah, you signed it, and I would say you definitely want to honor what you sign and say you'll do, right? But there's also times that if you're coerced into something or under duress or under protest, like, I can't tell you, I've done that before. I've documented where, I was ordered to do something, and I wrote in there, this is under the, instruction and order of both physician and supervising management, against my better, clinical judgment. This is not part of my plan of care, but under, certain no certain terms of threat, do it. And so I've documented that. You have to stand up for yourself. You cannot roll over, guys. All right, you are. I forgot what magazine ranked us, but I think we're ranked number 4 or 5 or 6 of the top most legit doctorates out there. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not worth it, or that your education or training doesn't matter. I mean, to me, that's the ultimate insult to our professors and our researchers who have elevated from the ground up this profession on the academic fronts, on the rest of us, to do it on the practice front, on the advocacy front, on the legislative front, on the marketing front, on the business front. Oh, gosh. Yeah, dude. True. Loyalty stuff. And especially, most states are at will. They're at will employment. Okay, guys? At will employment means that they can at will fire you and you can at will leave. There's no such thing in those states as a 2-week or 3-week or 4-week notice. Now, they'll write in their human resource policies that to be on good standing for hire back or for promotions next time around, if you want to work for that company again, that you have to give them that kind of notice. But they can't legally force you to do that. There's a little something called slavery that's not exactly legal in the United States. So don't let anybody think that they can hold you to those clauses. And if they're trying to, talk to a lawyer. Tiffany, I should reconsider coming from a hospital-owned outpatient Dallas 70. Honestly, there's a couple of factors right there. And Tiffany, let me come right back to you, because I did promise to share an inpatient story. So the inpatient story was this. A close friend, colleague, was in San Diego, moved to Bay Area, and she was paid around what I was paid, in 30s, low 30s an hour. And then she did a lateral transfer to another hospital, kind of neuro clinic kind of thing. And I told her, I don't care how uncomfortable you are. I know you don't like to negotiate, unless it's at a flea market, but you got to put that flea market hat on and talk to your hiring manager across the table and say, is there any wiggle room? Just say those words. Is there any wiggle room? And the guy scoffed. The guy goes, yeah, you know what? Let's just make it this. All right. What he did was he actually countered himself by another $4.50 an hour. and it's not just that. I mean, another recent victory story that I love sharing is there's a new grad PT working also in the California area, and acute care PT offered $38 an hour. And for most of us, right, $38 an hour, new grad acute care PT, sold. I'm not even talking about it. Like, where do I sign right now? She was smart. She said, let me think about it. She thought about it. She countered. She landed this. She landed, I'm getting my numbers mixed up. There's so many of these numbers, and they're all pretty close together. But she landed, I think it was $46 an hour for Monday through Fridays, and $52 for the weekends. All right, from $38 an hour. That's crazy talk, and also normal now, completely normal. So those are your stories there for inpatient and that kind of stuff. And there's absolutely ways. Most of them is going to be lateral transfers or seeking a promotion. You take on more duties that you're probably already doing anyway, and then you get a raise that way, because a lot of corporations, they need to title you differently to actually give you those raises. And there's a couple other ways we can talk about it. But Tiffany, you're talking about a multiple factor question right there, right? You should absolutely counter them, right? And say, hey, I'm being paid 70, but you're also dealing with two different, locales. And so, there's a little bit of regionality there that's in effect, but you should ask them, hey, so I was making 70, you think you can at least match it? Right? And you can also talk about a lot of outpatients and a lot of large outpatient and home health. Home health has been on this for ages. Like, home health is leading the edge in terms of the business and finances of the rehab world, because they recognize the need for savvy supply chains and for people to be just as invested in the operational as well as the clinical aspects of what we do. And so most of them do pay by visits. And what they'll do is they'll pay you more for more worthy or more important supply chain oriented visits, like starter cares and OASIs and evaluations and discharges. So you can do a tiered profit sharing. You can do a different like bonus structure or percent collections, or different cut of top and bottom line in outpatient as well as home health. It's a little different for inpatient and home and acute care hospital stuff, because their finances are kind of mucky. But I wouldn't, Tiffany, I wouldn't necessarily reconsider it. Just counter them and see a discussion. Brittany, where do I networking CPT advice? Honestly, start on social media. I'll tell you a couple of places, all right? Obviously, Facebook is great. We have a couple of big groups. We have this group, which is 30K, which is awesome, but there's a whole bunch of other groups. And just start working around and looking at the conversation, and start paying attention to what people are seeing, the content that they're putting out. And if you start jiving with that, right, that makes you smile. You go, that's the one I want. Start researching them. And you can start sending as early as you want. Even when you're first year out, send letter of intent going, hey, look, I really love what you're doing. I know times can move quickly. I'm still in school and all that jazz, but I would love to work with a clinic like yours when I get out. Express your intent, and some places will hold out for you. Plenty of larger corporate places are more than happy to spend $8,000 to $12,000 keeping your situation vacant so you can be onboarded and they can keep you for 3 to 5 years. So let's see, how long before you recommend lateral transfer? 1 to 2 years. That's part 2. Brittany and anybody else, if it takes more than 1 to 2 years to move up or move around, get out. That's based on I want to say a Time magazine study that says that if you don't change jobs or you're not promoted or something doesn't change for you in a career or financial way, then you're losing something like 34 to like 53%, as high as like 68% opportunity. And I can tell you that for a fact. I have experienced that, and I've seen and helped a lot of other people experience that very same thing. I want to say I was given something like a $20,000 raise when I quit my corporate job. And it was like, that's just how it works. It's the job market, like the housing market. You have to see it that way. You wouldn't invest in a bum home, in a bum environment with terrible equity and craziness all over the place with no hope of reselling the place to make a profit. Then if that looks like the job opportunity you're looking at or your current job, get out. So be on social media. It's the best place to be. Twitter is a huge place. It's pulsatile now. Twitter's kind of changed. Like back in 3 years ago, Twitter used to be super dynamic in the PT world. Right now, it's more pulsatile, as in like right now, House of Delegates and APTA Next conferences coming out. That's when people start chatting a whole bunch again. Instagram is shaping up a little bit, but I'm finding that Facebook is really big, and LinkedIn is starting to get a little bit. There's a lot of business-minded PTs on LinkedIn, which is actually not a bad channel to go on. But honestly, it's a job market, right? It's like there's no really good like Redfin per se. The only folks I can really deem a good shout out to is Covalent Careers and New Grad PT, Brett Kestenbaum. We spoke together at CSM, and they're actually in San Diego here also. Quasi neighbors. Grab sushi. And they created a software solution. It started in the optometry field, but it's in rehab as well. And depending on your location, they might have some really good matches for you. So some places to start. Kyle, let's see. And guys, I'm working down the comments. I'm really sorry. I'm trying to get through this here and address stuff. Wondering what you do. Third year PTs, prepare us wage to deserve. Okay, so if you're just jumping on, that's a great question. Like, how do I prepare? If I'm a student or if I'm a new grad, if I'm ready to move on, like say I've worked for a place for a couple of months or maybe a year or two, and like, you know what, it's time to move on. What you want to start doing now is set up a separate account in your emails, or if you have Gmail, give them like an extra dot. So, like if my email was ben.fung is how I signed up, then what you want to do is benfun.g at Gmail. If you put dots, not too many, just a couple, like one or two off place for your Gmail, Gmail can filter that to a separate folder. And what you want to start doing is signing up for every possible job thing out there, whether it's Indeed, Monster, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, whatever it is, ZipRecruiter, it doesn't really matter. Send it all out there. All that stuff eventually goes to some other recruiter, and what you're looking for is information. You want to cross-check their information because they're going to send you all these different offers, all these different recruiting announcements, and you want to cross-check that across the job market pulse to make sure they're actually being paid fairly. And then if they are, right, if that's one of your criteria, there's 6 dimensions of compensation. Never stick to just one, right? There's salary, benefits, there's perks, there's workplace opportunity, as in moving up. There's work-life balance, as in how hard they work you or how hard you feel like you have to work. And then finally, culture. And culture is probably the most important because the last 2 years we did talent surveys. You guys, many of you guys have actually responded to this. You said culture is the most important. There's no way I'm going to work for a mill. There's no way I'm going to go for a place that doesn't treat their patients' rights or, are there just to, every single time is going to be exactly 38 minutes for 3 units of neuromuscular re-education because that's just how it's going to be, right? Like, we're not going to do that. We're of a different mindset. So how do you prepare? Is you have to survey the job market, A. B, you need to know how to market yourself, right? And that requires a little bit of self-exploration, and you have to get over imposter syndromes. It might be helpful to get mentored or join a mentorship community. We have to learn how to look across the table, look across the camera. I love this. There was I invited like hotspot question. Sorry, just got a call there. Maybe I should turn on the do not disturb. Let's do that, huh? Do not disturb. But yeah, I asked for hotspot answers when I was keynoting for the Virginia Student Conclave, and they're like, well, how do you negotiate if you've never worked for a say you're always been an outpatient? How do you transfer over to peds and you have no experience there, like outside of like the 3 hours that you played with babies in your peds class? Sounds familiar, right? And so this was my answer. My answer is, look, being a good clinician is much more than just experience, right? There's a little bit of know-how, there's a little bit of talent, but most importantly, it's about connecting and making relationships and having the drive to learn more. Yeah, and dealing with people is dealing with people, dealing with patients, and I am willing to put forth more effort, more time, more of my personal resources and self-study to fit your needs in this clinic, but also expand on its competencies, because I do come from something else. I can probably start a different service line for you in this peds clinic. What do you think about having a youth sports and youth strength training camp, right, this summer? We live in a big baseball town. I can run some shoulder stuff and some injury prevention stuff. Whatever it is, right, I want you to know you can bet on me being 110% no matter what's happening. And if everybody's at 110, I'll be at 120. I will learn everything you need me to learn and learn it quickly. But I also bring a lot of the knowledge that my current to-be colleagues here probably don't have. And through that, we will strengthen each other and this business unit together. That is my pitch. Somewhat. It was somewhere there. What is considered fair salary benefits for a new grad? Samantha, that is super regional. I answered a little bit, but just go ahead and Google the PT Job Market Pulse or the Physical Therapy Job Market Pulse Year 1 report. Sign up. It's an email thing. You get an automatic download. That was by popular request. I'm really against automatic stuff, but everybody wanted it, so I couldn't very well send it out by hand over and over again. So if you get that, you'll get it. You'll get the salary portion, and we did that on purpose because the benefits are crazy in terms of how variable it can be. And in terms of what is fair, benefits typically are somewhere between 10 to 30% of additional cost to the company. All right, so if you're getting paid $80,000, they're probably working another $8,000 to $24,000 in your favor in retirement matching, in health benefits, and all sorts of different things. So take that into consideration. Now, if they give you like a super HMO plan that basically behaves like a PPO and they're matching like 6% of a 401k and they have a defined benefits plan for pension, then you're probably not going to get paid much out of cash because the accounting is different. If they don't have to pay you much out of cash, then what occurs is they can look like they're a little bit more asset heavy in terms of the financial health of their company, whereas somebody's just blowing through cash and paying you only that, then they're probably not going to be paying you that much in benefits. You probably don't have that many perks, right? You're probably not going to have a coffee machine. It's probably pretty bare bones, but you got a lot of money in your pocket, and then you can use that to directly pay off loans. So just know that there's that 10 to 30% rule. Tony, right? And the thing is, it's happening. Like when we announced that we were going to open Recharge out in Maryland. Gene Shiragarad, myself, and Dr. Ryan Michael Smith, we're partners there. Again, the physio CrossFit mindfulness thing. We had, we had emails and messages of intent. Like, hey, look, I would love to work with something like this. And so, like, cool. Like, put you in that folder, and we'll keep you in mind. And that's huge. Just as a practice owner now. Drew, you're hired, my man. Exactly. So, guys, you cannot ever settle. And I actually want to do another shout out here to Anthony Meritato. Tony, he is a private practitioner, and I don't want to misrepresent or underrepresent him, but I think we need to get him on some major platform for the next, PPS or CSM or something. Or if you're in Ohio or Florida, get him to your program and have him talk about career stuff and talk about, like business and finance, because he knows what he's talking about. He really, really does. Like we need community leaders within our community like him to be more highlighted. Because again, I'm not the only one. I'm just kind of a loud guy. Call it the beach culture, right? Hey! Oh man. So guys, what questions do you have? What else can I cover? I just can't stress enough. You can't settle. Right? For every lowball offer, there's somebody willing to just pitch you something fair right off the cuff. And if they can't, flex for you, if they can't give you another dime, they'll let you know, and they'll let you know nicely and kindly. Because what they are willing to do for you, they are willing to do to you. You've got to learn that lesson now so you don't get screwed on your career path. Because it really sucks when you find out that your current employment situation that you thought was going to be awesome turns to terrible. And I've seen that happen over the last, especially in the fall of last year. We got some really crazy messages that I had to help people work through, where we're talking like legal compliance and near financial fraud problems. So ask all these questions. Do it respectfully, right? I mean, like, hey, if it's okay, thank you so much for your time, and I would really appreciate your thoughts on where the business health is of this current department and the company at large. Maybe if you're able to and willing to, could we talk about maybe some of the numbers that help this place flow and what I can do to be a part of it and to make it better? And if they, if they're like, no, nobody talks to me except for whatever, right? Run for the hills. if they're like, oh yeah, sure, I can tell you that on average, most of our clinicians here, out of the 8 hours, they see patients every 6.5 to 7.2 hours. The average amount of units billed per encounter is about 2.2. Our cancellation rate is this, our no-show rate is this, and we currently have 4 major lead sources. We have 3 physician offices that are very large in town. We have great relationships with and have for a very long time since our owner started this company. But we also work very closely with the school systems because we have a youth athletic program. And then we also are very, very big with the geriatric community here with some of the CCRCs. These are our 3 primary lead sources. We expect our top revenue line to be this, our profit to be here, and we actually have an employee stock option company, plan rather, that we welcome you to buy into with investing after 3 years. All right, that'd be amazing. Daniel, what's a good salary for first year DPT during OCS residency? There is no good salary, my friend. I'm sorry. Right now, most residencies are paying about what PTAs make or a little bit less per the data that we have. Now, is that always the case? No. There's actually some pretty competitive residencies that I've heard of lately paying about low 70K full-time equivalent because they're realizing that they can't get residents anymore because we can't just starve our young first and hope that that first year or 2 of cheap labor is going to be worth it for them or us. And typically what happens is the residents that feel like they were abused end up opening up a clinic in town and blast the other one for competition. Let's see. Sebastian, any insight comparisons to East Coast versus West Coast outpatient practices? We are creating something called the PT Payer Info Pool. If you look that up, it's also on UpDoc Media, and we're trying to create something just like the PT Job Market Pulse where primarily it's oriented for private practitioners so they can see where people are getting paid, how much, and why. Why is there such regionality? Open source just like before. Nothing hidden. It's voluntary, anonymous data so that we can help each other figure out what that case is. In terms of the comparisons for outpatient, I can tell you that the coasts at large tend to pay better than Midwest areas in South and even parts of the Southwest. And I can tell you for a fact that on the more south you go and the more both south and like deserty you go in the California area, that pays the best on the West Coast, and the best paying on the East Coast primarily is in that New York, New Jersey area. But there's some hot spots, man, in Virginia, in Maryland. Like there's actually some pretty good paying opportunities out there as well. How can having a mentor help you in getting a job transition? Getting a mentor actually is what put me on my path. I talked to my hospital CEO who took me under his wing. And I told him, look, I want more. Like, I want more than just this, than just clinical, which, by the way, I have to say right now, just because you're not full-time clinical does not mean you're not a PT. I am not full-time clinical anymore. I'm absolutely PT at heart. I still see patients just under a different, structure, not insurance-based. I take care of some of my martial arts teammates. But it's not just about treating and billing and treating and billing. There's so many other things out there that we can be as PTs. But that said, my mentor, basically told me, look, you've got to do more than just be clinical, because if you follow this path, it's a dead end for you. You want more. You're not the person in healthcare that just wants to be a clinical specialist. And not that it just wants to be. He said it for me because that's for me, right? I don't just want to be, but somebody else might want to be that, and they don't just want to be an administrator. You can't have anybody define your path for you except for you. You're the only person that can tell you if something is worth it. You're the only person that can tell you that I want to go into business, or I want to go into administration, or I want to go into teaching, or I want to go to research, or I want to become an SES, OCS, or I want to get a CCS, and I want to completely transform the way the ICU is practiced at the highest levels. And I eventually want to be the director of patient services and patient care at this one hospital and work that out. Only you can tell you that. So, yeah. In terms of mentor helping you transition, they can help you navigate the job market. That's what they can do. That's the big thing. Was I thought I could, dig my heels in this particular hospital and work my way up to where I wanted. And my mentor was like, "There's nothing here that you want. You want something else. So you have to go and get it." And that was mind blowing to me. And it sounds so simple, but that is where it was. And through that, even after I got my MBA, he helped me navigate a little bit more to where I am now with 2 companies. Okay. Nicole, interested in neuro residency, how to turn it down because, yeah, they are, oh man, they don't pay that well. Honestly, there's a lot of mentorship going on out there, guys. You know, and just, you know, quick shout outs, right? There's PT Masterminds with Jeff Moore and Gene Rockbrod. I run a career mentorship group. Greg Todd runs one as well. And I know we're not the only ones. Shout out to also Aaron LeBauer, right? In the Cash PT Nation. There's a lot of us out there. Right, and we legitimately want to help our colleagues, and you know, I want to say for the longest time, like Gene and Jeff were actually, you know, if you wanted to put dollar on the minute, they're actually losing money running PT Masterminds, you know, quite a bit of it, because they actually care. Like, it's not about the money, it never was. Like, you should see the epicness that was the CSM get together of the last CSM of all the PT Masterminds and the entire group of people, and just the passion and the fire and the purpose and the drive that's in that room. And, you know, you hear him say it, this was never about money. This was never about like creating a tribe. This was all about developing a top tier excellence community within the PT world that we could rely on each other and keep each other accountable. That's what it was about. It was amazing. Let's see. So Nicole, there's a lot out there. You know, again, message me. I have a feeling that my inbox right now, my requested message is probably a little bit long, but let's see. Vladimir, exactly. Yeah, Kaiser residency, NorCal. Yep, they pay high 70s to 80s. James, glad you signed up. I'm glad you're taking a look. And we have to reach for greater compensation all the way around, because here's the thing: there's no secret what we're getting paid. Right, I blogged a while back that said why lowballing why lowball hurts everyone, and I made the case for value-based pay because insurers know what we're getting paid, or, you know, like as employees, and they know what they're paying us, so they know what our margins are, and they can very easily go, yeah, you know, they can take a little bit more of a hit. That's not a problem. They can take $5 less on per treatment. They'll survive. And the problem is, we have a history of lowballing ourselves as business. It'll drive you mad, absolutely crazy, because historically, we didn't feel like we could or should stand up for ourselves in this profession on the business front. And so when you know, payer A comes to me and goes, you know what, we need to renegotiate, most owners at the time in the classical age, so to speak, would go, oh, so sorry to offend you. In fact, you know, just pay us like $3 less per treatment this year. We'll handle it. We'll figure it out. Just don't drop our contract entirely. Whereas what we should have been doing, where a lot of our leaders were, was they said, nope, we're just going to move to your competitor. You know, I'm sorry to lose your business, but I really do hope that you'll be able to find some, you know, chain of clinics to take care of your 80,000 beneficiaries. That's how our response should be. Now, let's see. Abdul, I want to make 100K out of school. I'm not accepting anything. Are you crazy? No. I know plenty of new grads that are making 100K out of school. Primarily, they're doing a mixture of home health, SNF, and outpatient. Typically, the outpatient is like once or twice a week. The SNF is on the weekends, and home health is everywhere else. And home health is where they get their most of their cash flow as well as their benefits. But there's also the healthcare market. Absolutely not crazy. Completely reasonable. You know, I breached 6 figures in 3 years, and I got promoted above, you know, like a couple of station skips. And again, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I feel like I know how to communicate, and I feel like I can help others communicate that. That started this whole journey here, and that's, you know, appropriately, the PT Job Market Outlook 2.0 was our first UpDoc Media blog, because I wanted to share that knowledge, right, that I got from behind the scenes. And then after doing some consulting work after that and really getting behind the scenes. So it's not crazy at all. You want to make 100K? Make it. It probably won't be a 40-hour job, but you absolutely can make it. Nicole, cash-based PT. We're running a hybrid cash clinic out in Maryland. Absolutely worth it. If you know how to market it, if you know how to scale it, if you know how to do management systems, and recognize that clinical PT is not the only service that you need to run. You need to run the whole gambit of it. And honestly, clinical PT is not the only service that we ever needed to run, ever. But we did, because they were billable CPT codes and everybody relied on insurance. But that day has changed, right? When people have $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 of deductibles and high deductible PPO type plans, cash PT makes a lot more sense to them, because then you get better yesterday to get back to work, because they're tired of watching people wash hands. or folding napkins. Matt, thank you. Gosh, guys, like, no one should feel like that they sacrificed 4 years plus of undergrad and whatever you had to scrape on by to get, your GRE and all your prereqs. If you're like me, anatomy and certain types of physiology weren't, offered. Heck, I went to UCSD, for crying out loud, and I had a terrible GPA, and I had to figure out my way and interview with a certain level of cleverness and boldness to get into PT school. And from there, right, like we didn't have all those anatomy nightmares. I don't know about you guys, but I had anatomy nightmares, right? I had like floating bones with with bony prominences labeled that were floating around like Iron Man specs in my head in my first year. And like I would wake up, oh my gosh, ischial tuberosity. That's what it is, ischial tuberosity. I need to go back to bed or have more coffee or grab a drink or something, right? We didn't go through that. We didn't travel all over the place for our internships so that we can get paid median U.S. pay. All right, $55,000 is median U.S. pay. You are not a doctor to be paid median U.S. pay. I don't care if it's not physician status by CMS. That's on us. We need to advocate, right? We either need to fork out bucks for other people to do it, or we need to share our own stories and get our local communities to rally behind us. If you have an idea and a passion, you have a drive and this purpose, if you felt inspired before you got into this thing, and you hear this and you feel inspired still, then it's your job to share it. And it's your job to make sure you don't let it get snuffed out. And I can tell you, I'm not always Mr. Positive. Like, I'm known for being that, right? Like, I'm known for, I forgot when I said it on Twitter, but it was a big deal because there was a lot of infighting. And, I wrote a blog about not infighting, how that hurts everybody and hurts our public image, but also that if you don't have a solution, don't come whining. Don't come complaining, right? If you see a problem, bring a solution to it. Otherwise, work on it, right? You can express that there's a problem, but don't start whining about it unless you have a solution to come with it. So, with that, I'm not always Mr. Positive. That's why I partner with the business partners I have, and that's why I have my family support, and that's why I have my coach who coaches me in martial arts to push me beyond my boundaries, right? Everyone needs a coach. Everyone needs a mentor. Everyone needs a partner. Everybody needs a community. It's on us to make sure we're accountable to them, that we don't let them down, because if we let them down, we're letting down a lot of people that rely on us that we may not even think that is going on. I want to say, I think it's a shout out to the Duck Legs podcast, and Will Boyd had a great quote today. It was a little snippet, I think it was like 4 minutes or so, which was, if we're not happy, how the heck are we going to take care of our patients, right? If we're not engaged and not inspired, if we're not in it to win it, and we don't have that ability to spread that out, right? Like, how the heck am I supposed to talk to the wife of this patient who obviously got misdiagnosed, got just glory all qualified as BPPV, and the MRI is just black and white, like I see it's a cerebellar stroke. He has classical pica syndromes, and he has Horner syndrome and everything. Nothing he's doing is anything near peripheral. It's all super central. Things are lasting for like 2 minutes plus. How do I tell her, hey look, let's settle this down. I got your back. I have your husband's back and I have your back, and I'm going to talk to the hospitalist. I'm going to talk to the neurologist is a friend of mine, and I'll go down to radiology if I have to. But we're going to figure this out, and I'm going to get this diagnosis fixed correctly, and we're going to get you a rehab evaluator to get you rehab qualified, because that's what I did. And I had a battle against a neurologist and a hospitalist, 2 hospitalists, in fact, to get a secondary MRI, and surprise, surprise, well, suspected posterior cerebellar stroke. Interesting. Same spot, same everything. But that set the chain of events so that man was able to get acute neuro rehab, and then finally be able to drive home and then finish an outpatient. And then about a year later, we had dinner together in Little Italy, and I was able to watch him, right, walk all over the hills of San Diego and downtown and see that, he wasn't going to fall in like 0.3 of a second, because I was engaged enough to be able to advocate to that. But if I wasn't, right, I'd just be like, what can you do? So guys, let's see. Leighton, fair offer to new hires, must fair salary, partnership, equity stock option if I stay on 3 years. Well, I mean, if the terms are fair, then, discuss them. Happy to take a look at them as well. Our education is top notch. Absolutely, guys. I mean, what? A little bit over 10 years ago, right? I want to say John Childs came out with a study that I believe was validated, comparing PTs. Actually, they did this awe-inspiring thing, right? MSPT versus DPT versus I think experience/OCS versus the orthopedic surgeon. And we were like just on par, like at the top of our training, we're just on par at the orthopedic surgeon level. And that was over 10 years ago. I guarantee you right now, when it comes to musculoskeletal decision making, we'd be absolutely on top with no question whatsoever at the entry level. And to me, I think that's one of the most derogatory terms. Entry level doctor of physical therapy. Come on, right? This isn't bartending. This isn't serving coffee, and I've done both. We are doctors, right? We are, and it comes from the Latin root docere, which means to teach, right? We are teachers of physical health or physical wellness. If you look into like therapia in the Latin, I think it was, it's Greek. Therapia in Greek means to make well, right? We're doctors of making people well. It's not just about the rehab. It's about making them as well as they can be. Okay, guys, would you consider a mill in outpatient ortho? What would I consider? Guys, I mean, the mill is what they've always termed it in our area, but some people call it high volume. Essentially, what they do is they schedule everything for like exactly the CPT codes require, like the 8-minute rule, so exactly 23 minutes, or exactly 8 minutes, or exactly 38 minutes, or exactly 53 minutes, or exactly 68 minutes. And we all know these numbers. Like if you're in administration or business, you know these numbers, and it's no secret. And what they do is they try to stack as many patients as they can. They try to double book as many people as they can. And they try to bend as many rules as they can so that you can build as many units as you can, so they can collect as much money as they can, and so on and so forth. And they really don't care what you do. They just care that you physically see somebody, that you do the minimal requirements to put your hands on or to watch somebody or to, quote, supervise them, sometimes through aides. And depending on your state, aides techs, it's either legal or not, or frowned on or not, or perfectly acceptable. And I'm not against using aides, and I'm definitely not against partnering with the PTAs, because they're colleagues, guys. Like they're all colleagues. The entire physio team, PT, PTA, aide tech, receptionist, office manager, biller, they're all part of our family, guys. And it's not you versus me or us versus them, right? We all have to work together. This is an ecosystem. You can't just have one thing or the other, right? You have to have all of it, and it has to be in balance. So a mill is not in balance. A mill is one directional. It's only about revenue. It's only about profit driving. And trust me, I'm in business. I have an MBA, okay? I am in some format mentally programmed to respect the bottom line with my MBA and my corporate background. But at the same time, the reasons and how I get there matters just as much. Let's see. Cool, Drew. Thanks for sharing that. There's some great stuff out there, guys. I mean, PT Pintcast. I'd be remiss not to give a shout out to Therapy Insiders. There's a lot of great podcasts, a lot of great vlogs, a lot of great bloggers, a lot of great. And the more the better, right? We shared at the social PT Talk at CSM. How cool would it be if every single PT program, every single year, graduated folks like the prehab guys, right? They are viral on Instagram. I think they're probably 200,000 followers right now on Instagram because they're consumer facing, right? They do and share, and they leverage their content expertise on the things that our consumers, our customers want to see. That's what always matters most, always. And they're not sharing like, I don't know, like what do you want to call it? Like they're not sharing like say like a additional spine movement and manual therapy fellowship, like the secret in-group high order stuff. They're sharing essentially kinesiology and what you can do with basic knowledge and an appreciation for healthcare consumerism, right? And I can validate that myself, and that's why I shared with them. Like when we got together early in the days, they came to me with this idea, and I told them, look, you have to do my 3 E's and be consistent. And look at them now, right? They're amazing, and couldn't be prouder. And that's the key, guys, right? There's another example of mentorship there, but also most importantly, they're talking about the things that the consumers want, that the customers want. That's what I did when I got voluntold to go volunteer at a YMCA and give a health screen. I didn't even have any plans. They just sent me from the hospital, and I had a sheet of paper with me, and I did a quote spine screen. But I owned the entire audience there in that gymnasium because I talked about things the way they wanted to hear about. Right? I didn't talk about pain science. I didn't talk about arthrokinematics. I was like, hey, look, can you bend forward for me? Does that hurt? Can you bend backwards for me? It was kind of quasi-McKenzie. And it became this huge demo. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid I was going to ag somebody up. I wasn't afraid I was going to bomb a pseudo eval. Right? I'm sure in what I know. And I know that I can explain it away. And I can explain it away that if you don't respond right away, there's other things going on. Or if you did respond right away, why that is. Like we did a fun little thing based on root technique and quick stretch. I had people line up like, who thinks that they have tight hamstrings? Yeah, line up, 5 guys, or 5 people really. And I had them do hip extensions super fast, right? Just boom, 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 3 to the right, 3 to the left, touch your toes again. And they all were basically able to touch their toes. Quick stretch, right? Inhibited the hamstrings because they had a bunch of hip flexor stretch going to hip extension. And it was like magic. But it validated my content expertise, and they all wanted to be able to talk with me. All right, guys. I think we're kind of coming to a close there. What time? All right, hour in. Whew. So, I hope this helps you guys. Again, super welcome to message me, whatever platform you're comfortable with, where it's Facebook or Instagram or email ben@updocmedia.com. If you want to text me, 470-BEN-FUNG. It's a public number. Comes straight to my cell phone. It's just a Google Voice. Snapchat, right? They're all Dr. Ben Fung, DRBENFUNG. If you're a private practice owner and some of this stuff rings true and you're trying to land top talent, I can share with you how. Very happy to. This is all about growth, guys. This is all about growing together and elevating the profession from within by elevating each other. We can't do this if we're so afraid that by elevating somebody else that they're going to overshadow us. The greatest compliment I can ever be given is when somebody I've helped somewhere along the way, whether it's for a microsecond or if I've mentored them for years, does better than me. That to me is the ultimate compliment, because that means I'm doing something good. I'm making an impact at a way larger scale. Because now it's not just me helping a couple hundred or a couple thousand or how many ever people that I get to help. Now that person's doing the same, and they're perpetuating it, and they're sharing it. So share it. So guys, if this rings true to you, please share it. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to re-upload it to the UpDoc Facebook page. Share a couple of links there, including the PT Job Market Pulse, the Talent Acquisition Report, the Payer Info Pool, any one of our mentorship groups if you're interested, and just only if you are. It's not a requirement to success, but I can tell you that if I wasn't mentored, I wouldn't be where I am. And I think anybody that has received mentorship, especially at the high levels, they can share with you too. This some of the best decisions that they've ever made. But at the very least, strike up a conversation, connect with somebody that you trust. You can share whether it's numbers or decisions with, because you want to make sure that you have that sounding board, that you're in the right, somewhere in the right ballpark direction. And it's game changing, right? And it also allows you not to feel like the crazy one. I think that's so super important. Like we feel like we're so nutty if we go out there going, okay, if new grads are making 60,000 and I want 90, I must be crazy. Or the entire market has gone nuts and settling for that, but you will not, because you will never settle. Trace, thank you. Thank you very much for those kind words. Guys, we're doing this together. Like, I couldn't do this without you, right? I couldn't do this unless you guys wanted to talk with me. And like I said earlier today, shout out to Lisa Weiss. She gave me my blog idea today by asking me a question, by connecting. Never be afraid to connect. Never be afraid to stand true to your value. Never settle. And never be afraid to do something. You've got to do something to change it. If you're not happy with the status quo, flipping challenge it, turn your back on it, build your new normal. Define it for yourself, right? So many people have. And I don't care what people have told you. In fact, I want to talk to your program director. In fact, if you're a student or a new grad, and they invited a private practitioner that basically stomps in there all grumpy and goes, "You have no place ever to negotiate as a new grad. And if you do, goodbye, you're dead to me," right? I want to talk to that program director or the DCE, because that's not appropriate. That's not edifying. That's not professional. And that is not allowed in my PT fam. I don't want you guys to ever feel like you are forced to or need to even believe it's a lie. It's a lie. Because too many of your colleagues are doing excellently because they're defining their own normals. Do not settle. All right, guys. Have a great evening. Thank you for hanging with me, especially those of you that hung with me since the very beginning. I really appreciate you guys. Honestly, I love you guys, because this has become the passion of what I do. Is, I think I actually enjoy this element of what I do more than like my business element. For those of you that don't know, like how I make a living now is through a remote position with Recharge, but also at UpDoc Media, where we help other business structures win. We help other practices win on the digital media front. And so really there's no like monetary investment for me when it comes to career stuff per se. But to me, this stuff matters the most, because I feel like I was underprepared coming out of school. And I felt that so many of us are taking advantage coming out of school. And now that you know this, please share it. Share it with your classmates, share it with your colleagues, share it with your coworkers. If you're a business owner, if you're a clinic director, if you're in a leadership position, share it with your staff. And take it home with you, and reevaluate your contracts, and reevaluate your market mix, reevaluate your aging schedule, because gosh, there's so much hidden in there right now. Like, I don't know what it is right now, but aging's been a really, really big deal lately. Happy to sort that out with you, and like help each other win, guys. We own less than 8% of the musculoskeletal healthcare market in the outpatient level, and our outpatient business is $30 to $60 billion annually, but we own less than 8% of that. Let's just round it to 10%. That means we have a potential as an industry to bring in $300 million at the minimum if we were to maximize our entire market share. 150 if we were at 50%. Imagine what that would do just on a financial level to our businesses, to our practices, to our partnerships, to our salaries, to our student debt. If we weren't just quibbling over the referral sources and quibbling over this and that, and fighting over these little minute things that consumers don't care about. Imagine if we went from 8 to 16, 16 to 32, 32 to 50% musculoskeletal market share alone, not even considering neuro, not even considering cardiopulm, not even considering integ, right? Or any of the subspecialties like pelvic and vestibular, which I think should be a majority thing, because you kind of need a balance if you're going to move. Imagine if we just had that. We wouldn't be quibbling over $70,000, $60,000, $50,000. Like, all of us would be like, no, as a new grad, I heard that even $120,000 a year is kind of low. To me, that'd be amazing. And that means I'm doing my job. So help me build this future together. All right, guys? All right, I should go. I'm starting to actually quiver here a little bit. Thanks for being with me, and thank you for your support, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for helping me change minds, because we can only do that together. So have a great night.